Nothing as deliberate and targeted as a career transition ever happened without a plan. I mean, you don't just daydream this into existence. In the immortal words of that great philosopher, Roy Miller, played by Tom Cruise in the movie Night and Day, written by Patrick O'Neill, someday. That's a dangerous word. It's really just code for never.
Greetings, my friend. We are all interested in the future, for that is where you and I are going to spend the rest of our lives. And remember, my friend, future events such as these will affect you in the future.
A successful career transition requires a plan, one deliberately mapped out and followed. Now, as we execute this plan, we need to re-examine it, tweak it, adjust it, because situations are always forever changing and fluid. Nevertheless, the plan is there to keep us on track. So, what goes into a good plan? Well, the first thing we want to do is make sure that our objective, our goal, what we're shooting for, is written out in a smart way. Now, when I say smart, I mean specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Let's go over each one of these and examine how we can apply them to a career change. All right, so the first one is specific, and this means what exactly do you want to accomplish? Now, in the case of a career transition, let's say that we want to be a truck driver. Okay, but that's not specific enough. What kind of endorsements will you need? After all, there are endorsements for single, double, or triple trailers, hazmat, passengers, things like that. You want to be very specific about what kind of career you are attempting to build. Okay, the second one is measurable. And by measurable, we mean, how will you know when you're successful? How will you measure success? So if we go back to our example of a truck driver, is it when you get your endorsements and you're able to get your first job? Is that successful? Or is it when you are earning as much money as you did in your previous career? Maybe that's how you're going to measure success. Or maybe you're just kind of doing truck driving on the side while you're doing some other things, but at least you can feel like you are a truck driver. If somebody asks, what do? You can say, I am a truck driver without feeling disingenuous. The point is, whatever is successful is up to you, how you measure success. But you want to understand what that measurement is. Let me give you an example from my own career transition when I was moving from the corporate sector to academia. Now, as a corporate trainer, sure, I was teaching, I was traveling the world, doing seminars and workshops, but I couldn't really say I'm a professor, right? So I had not met my measurement of success. Later, I was able to get an adjunct position with a local university, but that still wasn't my measure of success. It wasn't until I was hired on at Salt Lake Community College as a tenure track professor that I could say, yes, I have successfully made the transition. Now, somebody else might have said, well, you weren't earning as much before, so were you really successful? That wasn't my measure. Somebody else still could have said, well, you're not a professor at a full university, so are you really successful? That wasn't my measure. I was able to meet my measure of success. So you want to understand what your measure is. Okay, so that's specific and measurable. Next is attainable. By attainable, we mean we want to make sure that we can actually reach our objective. We don't want to set something out there that is just so insane that we can never do it. Now, the good news is you've already kind of explored this in depth. You've looked at your constraints, you've looked at your skills and experiences, credentials and so forth. You've looked at the 3 buckets, those abilities you have, some to some degree and some not at all. So you have a pretty darn good idea of what is attainable for you. This is really good because this means that you're not some dreamy-eyed neophyte who is blissfully unaware of what is before you. You know what it's going to take, and you know what's attainable for you. Okay, so that brings us to relevant. What do we mean by relevant? It means that the objective you set for yourself lines up for your vision of the future. Now, remember, in a much earlier episode, you developed a why statement. Why do you want this career transition? In so doing, you developed a vision of the future. You want to make sure that this career transition you do, that this objective lines up with that vision of the future. That's what we mean by relevant. Now, as an example, let me show you one that would not line up in terms of relevant. Let's go back to our truck driver. Let's say that the truck driver, in developing his or her why statement, said, you know what, I really want to spend more time at home, more time with the family, and really kind of work on my home and my garden and all that good stuff. Well, I got news for you. A truck driver does not spend a lot of time at home, does not spend a lot of time with the family, and certainly isn't putting together some award-winning garden. So the objective of becoming a truck driver would not line up, would not be relevant to a vision of spending more time at home with the family. On the other hand, if this individual is saying, no, my why is to be solitary, to spend time alone, to be contemplative, and to experience the wide open road, and to visit new places, and to really have an opportunity to explore the country, then yeah, a truck driver is a completely relevant objective to that why statement. Okay, so that brings us to the last one, time-bound. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. It's easy to understand. You want to set a due date for yourself. The thing is, even though it's easy to understand, it's often underappreciated. We kind of feel like, oh, you know what? There's always time. I can, do it later. There's no need for me to hurry on this transition. And that may be the case. But remember the costs. There are financial costs, there are time and energy and stakeholder support costs. The longer your career transition takes, the more these costs will increase. Now, ultimately, I am a big fan of deadlines. I love deadlines. Deadlines are what make sure that this idea of someday is not ultimately code for never. When we set deadlines before us, we're able to focus on them and really march toward those orders. And when we put together our plan, we're going to have a series of milestones, deadlines that we want to reach in order to ultimately attain our final goal of a career transition. So let me show you what I mean by that. Let's return to our truck driver example. Now, in order to become a truck driver, we need to get the certifications, we need to get the endorsements, which means we need to go to school, which means we need to line up financing. Okay, so those are all milestones. Get the endorsement, but first you need to go to school, but first you need to line up the financing. And then financing itself will have a variety of subtasks under that. This will include researching different financing options, making calls to different financial experts and providers, deciding on the best financing options, completing the required paperwork, and submitting the application for funding. These are all the small steps that lead up to the milestones, and then all the milestones lead us up to our objective. And all the while, we are time-bound. We have deadlines before us. That way, we know that we are always making progress against our objective. Now, you're probably getting kind of a to-do list vibe out of this process that I just talked about. And that's not by accident. This is actually a really good tool for us. This is more than just a back-of-the-napkin analysis of what needs to be done. We want to really deliberately and methodically figure out the steps and milestones we need to follow to reach our objective. And speaking for myself, I love to-do lists. I actually keep them in journals, all mapped out against my plan. Now, there are a lot of advantages to doing this. Let me share some of them with you. First, it keeps us focused on what we need to accomplish. Now, life is busy, life is messy, and there's going to be any number of things trying to vie for your attention. So by mapping things out, by creating this to-do list against our tasks and our milestones and our objectives, we're able to focus on what needs to be accomplished. It also helps us manage our resources. So it's going to take time and energy, in some cases money and so forth, to do what we need to do. By mapping things out, by listing them in a to-do list fashion, we're able to kind of figure out, okay, here are the things I need to get done for my day job, if you will. Here are my obligations with my family and so forth. Here's the time I have available and the energy I have available to pursue this career transition. By mapping things out in this to-do list fashion, we're able to account for and manage all the resources we have and figure out where we're going to allocate them through the day, week, and month. Third, it reduces stress. After all, a career transition is kind of a job in and of itself. All right, so you're already massively busy with your friends and family and all that. And then you have your job, so you're spending time and energy there. Well, now you've added this third job into the mix. And so if you thought your life was kind of crazy before, you ain't seen nothing yet. So by mapping out our tasks along with our milestones to our objective, we're able to say, okay, I can keep things in order. I can keep things kind of sorted. I can manage this. And that helps us manage stress. Another thing that these to-do lists do for us is they help us track and reward our progress. Now, think about it. You may very well be spending years on this transition, and it's going to be easy to kind of lose energy and become disheartened. But if we are able to track and reward ourselves as we move along this plan, we will be emboldened. We will always feel the need and drive to continue moving forward. And that's a powerful thing. Now, those are just a few advantages to really mapping out your plan in sort of a to-do list fashion. There are many others, but I'm not going to bore you with them right here. The point is, take the time to do this. Sit down, set up your goals, figure out what milestones you need to reach those goals, and then figure out what tasks you need to accomplish to reach those milestones, to reach those goals. Trust me, it works, and you're going to be successful. All right? So I hope this was helpful. Until we talk next, have a fantastic day. So I keep a journal here of all the things I need to accomplish for my annual goals. Each year I figure out what goals I want to accomplish, and then I figure out the milestones, and then I figure out the tasks, and I list them out for each day. So yeah, I'm pretty serious about this.